Springtime is like 2 straight months of Saturday nights. It's the season when Hockey Night in Canada is like this windowsill perched next to the Stanley Cup playoffs. The second season, spring, when it's about winning and nothing else. And you know, they say champions are made when nobody is watching. Right now, the eve of the Stanley Cup playoffs, the coaches are poring over the game film. It's not just the coaches, the goaltenders are looking. Actually, Glenn Healy here, he used to have to tell Mike Richter about the tendencies, but to this day, Kelly Rudy can still tell you whether it's a left-hand shot or a right-hand shot. They keep a book on all the shooters. PJ Stock, he'd have to look for lefties or righties as well. And everybody's studying. Our crews right now are putting together the features, and more important, we're editing the musical montages that are the industry standard. Bands like Cuff the Duke, who will perform for us. When Carolina won the Cup, as the men walked out of their dressing room, they saw a sign over the doorway. It's not about me, it's about the guy in front of me. And it's the same for us. For a team to be dependable, you need folks around you. So tomorrow night, we're not a doorway, we're a window. And we'll throw that one open at 8 o'clock Eastern, and the view will be clear and complete. You can count on us for the 60th year in a row.
Gently this land expands all around you. You are carried through the summer months with ease. And when the water starts to freeze and contract like a fist, the morning comes once again. Surrounded by so many sights unseen, but I won't turn and walk away. You can count on me. You can count on me. No, I won't turn and walk away. You can count on me. You can count on me. On me. Protected by the vision you have, may it always serve you well. Exaggerate the means in which you need to survive, for soon you'll hear the warning bell, and heaven weighs heavy on your mind. But I won't turn and walk away. You can count on me. You can count on me. No, I won't turn and walk away. You can count on me. You can count on me. On me. I won't turn and walk away. You can count on me. You can count on me. No, I won't turn and walk away. You can count on me. You can count on me. On me.
Hello, Canada and hockey fans, United States and Newfoundland.
Take the shot. Howard tapped it. Back of the net to Patton. Score. He scores! Bobby Orr! Look at the goal. Oh, my heavens. What a goal. What a move. Oh, baby.
So our first musical of the year, Cuff the Duke. Wayne Petty was actually a visitor with us in Game 3 of the Philadelphia-Chicago series in 2010. The band Cuff the Duke will be performing in Fredericton Thursday, Prince Edward Island, Charlottetown on Friday night, and into Halifax on the weekend. So look forward to that. Kelly Rudy, Glenn Healy, PJ Stock. PJ, in a word, the Stanley Cup playoffs. What's it to you?
A word?
Or 5.
Okay, you know, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, the size of the fight in the dog. You know, you can have the most talented team out there, but if they're not willing to sacrifice everything for that common team goal, to put all that fight into it, they can be beaten by another team.
Forever. Because when you do what PJ's talking about, they put your name, and it's your family name, on the cup forever. And it's a hard trophy to win, but man, when you win it, it lasts forever.
That's the thing about immortality. Wow. It tends to go on and on.
Top that one.
Kelly.
Focus, because typically you see a lot of goals that are scored on goalies in the last 2 minutes of a period or the first 2 minutes of a period, especially in playoffs, because I think you tend to get your mind wandering just a little bit, thinking about something other than stopping the puck.
That's Marty Brodeur said Jacques Caron was always after him to keep his eye on the puck. And actually, we got a couple of clips of Luongo. It happened against L.A. this year, and it happened, of course, with Niedermayer's famous goal. Tomorrow evening, 8 o'clock, we'll start with the Nashville Predators hosting Detroit. What a 4 beautiful series we have, but everybody's looking forward to Motown versus Music City, and then we'll go right into Los Angeles at Vancouver. They met in the playoffs a couple of years ago. So 8 o'clock Eastern, 10:30 Eastern for the games from Nashville and the Lower Mainland. Then Thursday night, we have games from Madison Square Garden and the Stanley Cup champions hosting Washington. As you can see, those start times are pretty much simultaneous, so we'll flip back and forth during the intermissions. Donald S. Cherry will be in for that Ottawa-New York Rangers series all through the postseason. On CBC News Network and on our website at cbcsports.ca. You can join the playoff pulse. We'll have a question of the day. Today's is, and we'll have the result later on in our Stanley Cup Countdown show. If you were in charge, who would be the Canucks starting goalie? Roberto Luongo, Corey Schneider. So that's our question at cbcsports.ca. Don't forget, you can join us at hashtag HNIC to join the conversation this evening throughout the... I heard Brian Burke's going to make a few tweaks. I thought he said tweets. Anyhow, all through the show we'll be giving your tweets. You can join in our conversation this evening. So Cuff the Duke will take us to commercial break number 1. And when we come back, we'll look at the Eastern Conference on the Hockey Night in Canada Stanley Cup Countdown. Performing on the set belonging to Don Cherry. That's where Don does the coach's corner. We'd have had Don join them, but he likes to blow his own horn. Okay, Ottawa Senators, New York Rangers. Don't worry, this gets better, I hope. Ottawa Senators, overachievers or believers?
Here's Alfredson back the other way with Spezza. Lays it in front. Spezza scores! Carlson, his shot, scores! Carlson, top corner!
The Ottawa Senators are a lot better than people think.
I think we had a quiet confidence coming into the season that we were a lot better than people thought we were.
At the beginning of the year, everyone felt we're going to be in dead last or close to last. And to be able to clinch a playoff spot and to, I guess, be the feel-good story of the year is pretty special.
We like to call ourselves the Pesky Sens. That's a little nickname we've given ourselves. We've made some unbelievable comebacks this year.
3-on-1. Carlson moving in, scores! The Ottawa Senators are now the best comeback team in the NHL.
That's going to be huge in the playoffs. I think that's something that, you get down a goal and you got to fight back, and shows all the character we have in this room, and I think we have a lot of it.
We're going to be underdogs, there's no question.
We don't care what everybody's saying. We feel like we can beat anybody.
If we expect to lose, you're going to lose. We go in every night expecting to win the hockey game.
Senators and the Rangers begins Thursday night. Bob Cole, Gary Galley, and Glenn Healy will call that game. We're going to the nation's capital right now to check in with Gary Galley for a scene set on what Ottawa has to do to try and beat the New York Rangers.
Well, thank you, Ron. The New York Rangers, the beasts of the East, so to speak, first place in the Eastern Conference, and well-deserved at that. You look at, there are certain points in this season where the New York Rangers were threatened by teams, and right towards the end, the Pittsburgh Penguins, everyone thought they were going to pass the Rangers. The Rangers kept their poise and their confidence, and they continued to win games and keep themselves atop of the East. John Tortorella's done a very good job. Should have himself a Coach of the Year nomination there in New York. This is a very strong team from the net outwards. Lundqvist, he's ready to have that long playoff run, and he deserves it. And he's had a sensational season, could get Hart Trophy nomination as well there. On defense, you've got Delzato, McDonough, Girardi, Stahl. Good, solid Fab Four there to work with. Up front, a ton of weaponry that can work from line to line. Richards, the seasoned Stanley Cup champion that knows what the playoffs are all about. Gaborik, who's had a wonderful season. If he can stay healthy, it could be a great playoff run. Dubinsky's kind of a gritty guy. Anisimov, a big guy. Boyle, this is a big team that cycles really well. So look for them to do a lot of that in forechecking hard, get the tempo up, and make the defense of Ottawa have to battle them down low. I will tell you this, too, though. This team has great leadership. Ryan Callahan is a Class A player in the National Hockey League. Not only can he be productive, he's a good, solid leader. For the Ottawa Senators, hey, they're playing with the casino's money right now. No one expected them to be in the playoffs. They're coming this nice and loose and goosey, the underdog, and they've got some weapons of their own. Jason Spezza is a guy that really can light it up. If they cover him, they've picked up Turris this year, and Turris is a great, solid second-line center that proves that he can be productive. You look on the backside, breakout corrective years for Kuba, for Gonchar, for Phillips. They've straightened up their game, so it's going to be a solid backcourt, and Craig Anderson is certainly capable of getting it done. They had a solid record against the Rangers in the regular season, 3-1, but the playoffs are a whole different animal, and they better be ready when it starts because their last 3 games to finish this season were very lackluster. Ron?
Gary, as you know, it starts Thursday night at 7 o'clock and again Saturday night 7 for Game 2 at MSG in New York. So the pollsters, our experts' picks, Kelly, Glenn, and PJ see it this way. Wow, we do have a Senators pick. PJ Stock goes Senators in 7. Glenn and Kelly have the Rangers in 6 or 5 in Glenn Healy's case. So, Sens, how come, PJ?
Well, I think New York is the better team. I think they...
Well done, Sherlock.
See, they have more points.
They're first, and go on.
Okay. I think they have the better team, but they have less talent. And I think that if you go from the goalie, he's their best player on New York. But then in every other position, I think the more dominant player, skill-wise, is in Ottawa at almost every position. From defense out, offensively, of course, I'm talking about, to you have Carlson on the back end. Up front, you got 2 great lines that can score goals. I think the offense really comes from one line in New York. And that one line wasn't that successful on the power play this year. I think goals are going to be tough to come by in the playoffs, and I don't know if New York has enough offense to get through a team that I know that is going to score in Ottawa.
Key to Ottawa is Carlson, the back-end guy. He's the key to them 5-on-5 offensively, key to their power play. Okay, Tortorella's teams do 2 things. They block shots and they hit. So, Mr. Carlson, you are going to get 12 forwards going at you. It's 12 against 1. And so at the end of this 2-week war, it is not going to be pretty for the Ottawa Senators. And Carlson's going to have to face it because the Rangers are going to be dutifully bound to do that. The other big thing is you've got Girardi and McDonough, who are your shutdown pair at the back end, and they'll do their best to shut down Spezza. And what's plan B? Delzato and Stahl, that's not too bad. I don't like the foot speed of Kuba. I don't like it of Cowan, and I don't like it of Phillips.
Yeah.
And so, when you put it all together, the Rangers are a better team because the 82-game dress rehearsal shows they're a better team, and they will be for 2 weeks. And these Ottawa guys in front, stop giving me dirty looks, please.
Kelly, the other thing about that, just to jump in on that, can Kyle Turris in the second hole as center iceman handle that physicality too?
Well, I don't think he can handle the physical play, but I have to admit I'm really impressed with his play. I mean, he's a pretty smart guy, and he's pretty good defensively as well. A little bit like Brendan Morrison, whom he watched a lot growing up in Vancouver. But when you talk about lack of foot speed, then the trouble is Gaborik, right? He's the guy that, he just kills you with his foot speed. We've seen many opportunities where he gets he doesn't even have to have the puck, and he just breaks for an opening, and he's very hard to spot. It's even harder to catch him, of course, and he's got incredible hands. He can change where he wants to shoot the puck without very little hesitation. He doesn't give away where he's shooting very often, and I think he's just going to be trouble for the Sens.
And Hagelin, the other winger on that line, maybe the fastest guy in the National Hockey League right now. All right, let's check in at the Chevrolet iDesk for the first time this postseason. Elliot Friedman.
And Ron, the guy you talked about, Carlson, had the great quote today. He was asked about his friend Henrik Lundqvist, and he said, you know what, he's had a good year, but hopefully it's time for him to go home. We'll see if he's right and PJ is right on the picks. Couple of notes. One of the big stories, obviously, is Washington moving forward in their goaltending situation. Both Michael Neuwirth and Thomas Vokoun skated today. Both of them haven't been doing it a lot. George McPhee, the general manager, said that Neuwirth is farther along than Vokoun. However, the news doesn't appear great for him. Asked if he could play in the first round, he said, I don't know. I don't have the answer. So Braden Holtby appears to be the guy. In Philadelphia, the Philly reporter is very curious about Ilya Bryzgalov. He's still walking around with a limp, but as he said, Ron, he's not concerned about the limp. He's more concerned about the bears in the forest.
A lot more injury news coming up on the show. We'll continue. The Vancouver Canucks, of course, also a Canadian team in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Their story later. We'll continue with the East on Stanley Cup Countdown next. Welcome back to the Hockey Night in Canada Stanley Cup Countdown. The champions will open against Washington Thursday evening, 7:30. So that's in conjunction with our Sens Rangers coverage, bonus coverage coming up from Beantown on Hockey Night in Canada. We have a live studio audience in our broadcast center in Toronto, and Rob in the audience has a question for our panel. So Rob, over to you.
Yeah, I was just wondering, the Battle of Pennsylvania there got really out of hand at the end of the regular season. I was just wondering if the panel, what they think, if going forward, if it's going to be really aggressive or if it's going to be timid.
Well, I think Philadelphia, if I could jump in, I think the toughest guy on their team is their assistant coach, and Craig Berube. So, I mean, I must have missed the memo where Briere, Giroux, Timonen, Carl, and we had the same thing. We played them in the late 90s, and Pat Quinn was the coach of the Leafs, and he had this great speech about how the Broad Street Bullies always play that way, but yet they're not that way anymore, and I think that would be this case here.
You disagree, PJ?
Well, you're leaving out, Hartnell and Simmons, and I think Giroux plays hard. I think they have that mentality, but on the Pitt side of things, there might not be another team besides St. Louis that finish their checks more than Pittsburgh does. So it's going to be a real physical series. And the tough thing is this is a 2-month drive. It's a 2-month stretch, right? So once you get through, whoever comes out of this one still has to go through Boston and some other. It's going to be a tough investment.
Okay, Caps, Bruins predictions. And Boston undeniably won the Stanley Cup because they were the toughest team in the NHL last year. How do the boys see it? Everybody. Now, I disagree.
I know you do.
I think Brooks Lake, Matt Hendricks, Dennis Weidman, I think this team's really playoff built. Washington more than most expect. Nicholas Backstrom back can do what Datsuk did to Shea Weber, is my theory. That Boston's a little bit, fat's too harsh a word, but they've won, and I think Washington can dispel a whole bad year by beating the champions.
I like the players you've chosen for Washington, but I just think that Boston's way too deep. And you look at their lines, and they come at you different ways. And you look at the Krejci, Peverley, Lucic line. They do everything. Lucic, not only a physical player, scoring touch. Krejci and Peverley, outrageously smart hockey players. I think they're just going to eat them alive.
And now Sagan's up with Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand, and that'll be likely the checking line against Ovechkin's line. First time out, anyway.
First thing that happens to a player when he wins a cup, he wants two. You get greedy. Mm-hmm. And Boston, far too deep, and they punish you. I question whether the Capitals will go to the compete level that they have to go to get by the cup champs who are going to cling on to that cup. And the biggest one, I mean, Elliot at the IDES finally said something of significance, but it was Holtby and Net. I mean, that's the guy you may have to go to war with. He's got 21 games of experience in the NHL. To put it into perspective, Thomas is back. playing well. He has 25 games in last year's postseason alone. So I wouldn't bet against Thomas and the Bruins.
And every goalie looks down at the other end of the ice and thinks that you have to outplay the other guy. What's going to be going through Holtby's mind when he looks at Tim Thomas, of all guys,
But nothing to lose. Be like Cam Ward against Brodeur.
But that is a pretty daunting task, right? You have to really, truly believe that you're better than that guy.
Well, and it does hurt the mentality of some of the players on Washington because they now have a built-in excuse. And they've come up with excuses the last few years. But back to what Kelly was talking about, the depth of this team. We mentioned the Krejci-Lucic-Peverley line, but I think the Marchand line, Bergeron, and Seguin might be the best line in hockey. A most complete line in hockey. They do everything well on both sides of the puck. And since they've added Brian Rolston, they now have a Pouliot-Paille-Rolston line. And they brought Brian in because Brian is great in the dressing room. And exactly what Glenn mentioned. You win one, you win two. And Rolston won one early in his career, and you just think you're going to win that second one. It's my first year, it's so easy. But you need to be reminded how important and how you have to play night in and night out. I think that's why Rolston's been a great addition, and their team's having success, and why your teams are losing 5.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. This will be an interesting one, obviously, because of the hijinks in the last 2 games of the regular season. Everybody kind of anointed Pittsburgh the moment Sidney Crosby showed he can be Sidney Crosby again. James Neal's had a wonderful year, although missed 2 games late in the year with an upper body injury. So Flyers and Pens, the predictions from our experts. First of all, let's see what they think about the Pennsylvania duel. Penguins. Yeah, it's hard to imagine anybody picking the Flyers just based on what we saw to Pittsburgh down the stretch.
It could have went. I think it could be quick or it could be long. So I took 6 in the middle, and I think I think Pittsburgh can roll them. I really think Pittsburgh can roll them. Yeah. But at the same time, if they start thinking about all the how tough it could be, and they don't play their game, it could be a long series. Malkin, Neal, Letang, Crosby, Stahl, those are all their stars. But I think that what makes this team really special are their extra players. Their Kunitz, their Dupuis, their Sullivan, their Kennedy, their Asham, their 6 defense. I mean, they are such a complete team from I'm talking about the extra guys, but they are so deep and so skilled at every position, and I think they have the best role players probably in the game. This is going to be tough.
Hartnell talks about being a bloodbath. Who's going to create this carnage? I just don't see it. Oh, great. Well, he's not playing.
That's right.
Yeah, let's bring back Dave Schultz. Maybe he can help it. I think the biggest thing here is if you are going to play loosey-goosey and try to be physical, and it'll happen in game 1 in the first 5 minutes, okay, then we get on with the series. You are going to put that group of talented players on the power play. And Philadelphia, you've shown me all year that you're the 21st best penalty killer in the league. That's not good enough against that collection of talent. So, from my standpoint, you've awoken the bear. You really have.
I'd be surprised if Laviolette lets that happen, though, Glenn. Well, Laviolette in Carolina would not let his guys fight, and he certainly didn't he wanted discipline over emotion.
I don't think there's going to be a lot of fighting, but I think it's going to be pretty spirited hockey. You can really hate your opponent, and that spirit or that anger comes out in different ways.
But let's forget the physical stuff because it's just going to happen. It's playoffs, right? But in net, Brizgalov. I mean, he was good for a long time. Kept quiet after the Winnipeg game when he said he was lousy. He's back at it again. He's off the trolley again. Yesterday, he absolutely melted down again. And if you're a coach, you don't want that. Keep everything off the bulletin board. Don't give any advantage to your other team.
That 24/7 I thought was really tough on him because everything he said, it was fodder. And I think he just opened up his mouth again, and every time you skate by him, someone's going to be acting like a bear.
Well, he really frightened me last year in the playoffs when he was awful versus Detroit, and he had no compete level whatsoever.
All right, the last series in the East, we'll just touch on a little bit. The New Jersey Devils and the Florida Panthers are Southeast Division champions, so they get home ice advantage against a New Jersey squad that is getting healthy. Zach Parise was banged up most of the year, but hot down the stretch. Travis Zajac is back. Brodeur has found his game, as Kelly was pointing out on the weekend. So what do the fellas say? Let's have a look at their predictions.
I like it when you call us experts.
Yeah, okay. What did I call you there? Fellows?
Yeah, fellows. Let's go with the experts.
Well, once you went through that nonsense about the Washington-Boston series, go ahead. Why the Devils? Anything
Devils are sneaky good. Yeah. They just have everything going for them. It starts with Brodeur, whom I didn't think was going to have a very good year after the start. He had his unbelievable last half. Kovalchuk is dangerous every single shift. In fact, if I'm Florida, I have a real conversation with my coaching staff and decide whether I go with Clemenson as opposed to Theodore.
Well, speaking of coaching staff, does DeBoer have something to play for here?
I mean,
put on the curb by the Florida Panthers. Brodeur doesn't have to be like he was in the years past. He has support now. Brodeur had to be Brodeur-like to win playoff round with 3 30-goal scorers in Clarkson, Parise, and Kovalchuk playing at both ends of the ice. This guy doesn't have to do this, but he can do this, and he's got more experience than anybody in the postseason. So he, for me, is a guy that I would never put money against at any time.
Florida's in the 3 spot because they won their division because of process of elimination. No one really wanted to win that division. They get in. Jersey's in the playoffs in a division that had 4 teams get in. There wasn't a lot of points available. They got in. They have forwards with tons of talent.
Speaking of elimination, the Vancouver Canucks squandered 6 of 9 elimination games last year. All that extra travel when they had Chicago down 3-0, when they had Nashville on the ropes, when they had a lead against San Jose and could have closed it out in 4. That really cost them. We're going to look at the Vancouver Canucks situation when we come back on our Stanley Cup countdown. The Western Conference playoff picture is next. We'll go to break on CBC with more from Cuff the Duke. Playoffs on Hockey Night in Canada. We'll have the Detroit-Nashville game at 8 o'clock Eastern, followed by the game from the Lower Mainland. For the second year in as many, the Vancouver Canucks know going in they will begin every round of the playoffs at home. The President's Trophies and the LA Kings, what have they learned this year?
It's over. It's an original 6th Stanley Cup for Boston.
I'm sure I'll still think about it probably for the rest of my life.
I think you're going to have to win it before you get over a loss like that.
How I felt personally when I knew I wasn't going to win the Stanley Cup last year would probably be crushed.
Probably never been at a lower point in my life.
You put so much energy, so much heart and soul.
You know, you work so hard to get to that, and then within 60 minutes, it's snatched away from you.
I tried to put what happened last year behind us. To come away with it with basically nothing is tough.
We know how it feels to lose, and we don't want to have the feeling again.
That's what playoffs all about, the beauty of playoffs. That's why we play. There's so many highs. There's so many lows. Every time you lose a game, it seems like it's the end of the world.
Obviously, I think for a lot of guys, a lot of soul searching over the summer.
We came so close last year to winning it all that I think guys are even hungrier this year and know what it takes to get there.
I think no one can take away what we experienced last year.
You knew it was going to be even more difficult year this year with the expectations that we made it that far and didn't win.
We're more of a mature group. We know what it takes. We're a hungry group that wants to succeed.
I think it's easier to play now, knowing that we've gotten that far and we've gone through so many different kinds of rounds, different kinds of opponents and players.
If we lose one, we just look at the tape, try to improve, and get ready for the next one. And I think that approach has really helped us last year, and I'm sure it's going to help us this year again.
I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen.
We've been waiting for this moment the entire year.
Your desire to win the Stanley Cup, it never changes.
Stanley Cup is the toughest trophy you can win.
Last year, it was close. One game, you could taste it.
So we had to mentally prepare ourselves for another long spring because it's a battle each and every round, and especially in the Western Conference, there's so many good teams.
Our hunger is bigger this year.
I think that one-game mentality approach is going to be huge for us again.
I think from last year to this year, it's definitely intensified.
If you're not bringing your best game, you're not going to make it.
Knowing what we've been through, I think it's going to help us a lot this year.
We got close last year. I think we're better as a team because we went through it.
I think we have a better team on paper, better team on the ice.
I think we're more capable to deal with different situations this year.
What a look from Ryan Kessler. So tomorrow night after Nashville, Detroit, and obviously we'll break away in British Columbia if the Wings and the Preds are going on and on. Los Angeles and Vancouver. Craig Simpson, he is so good on matchups, great on special teams. But Craig, I might start the question from you in Vancouver with Richards, Kopitar, the top 2 line centers for the LA Kings. What do you see, Kessler and Henrik Sedin? And then you can bring us to Daniel. But what do you see as a key matchup storyline there?
Well, I really think the fact that you have Sammy Paulson now as a member of the Vancouver Canucks, that it really makes a difference. And I think on a couple of levels, all of a sudden Alain Vigneault, who loves to match, will get a defensive matchup as well as an offensive matchup with the forwards. And I think it'll allow Ryan Kessler the opportunity to play a little bit more offensively. And you know Alain, he'll juggle his lines. He'll play with that quite a bit. And if he can shut down, if Kopitar can be shut down by Paulson, all of a sudden the offensive difference in this series, which is clearly in Vancouver's favor, becomes a bigger issue.
So Daniel Sedin didn't skate today. What's going on?
Well, I think you know the Vancouver Canucks. This time of year, there is absolutely no information, and it's one right now that he skated hard yesterday on a line with Mason Raymond and Henrik. Today he skated with the guys who are slated not to play tomorrow. My gut feeling, though, Ron, is that it's just simply a game. It's simply getting him away from the attention again. I would suspect he'll be in, although, of course, we don't know that for sure.
Craig, if I was picking a key to the series, it'd be Drew Doughty and discipline. What is it for you?
Well, I just think you look at the goaltenders, as the guys at the panel would know, there's just no difference between these two. The season series is tied at 2. Roberto Luongo has a 1.96 average. Jonathan Quick has a 1.73. So for Jim Houston, there aren't going to be many opportunities, I think, to say he scores. And I think it's just those little matchups and the mistakes. If Roberto Luongo happens to make one of the mistakes that he has at different times, that might open the door and the confidence of this LA Kings team, which I know they're playing the President's Trophy winners, but they think that they can win this series. And I really think you got to look to the goaltenders early down on both sides to settle their teams into this series.
Excellent, Craig. Here's the predictions from the three members at Studio 42 in Toronto, what they think of the Kings Canucks. Ooh, wow. Now we've got some news. PJ has Kings and Kelly has Los Angeles. So only Glenn standing by the #1 team in the National Hockey League. Well, first, before we get to that, Jamie on the floor, going to come up and attack two of the panelists. But Jamie, how about a question from you?
Hi, guys. Given the current injury situation to the Sedins and the strength and parity in the West and the elusive run that they made last year, do these guys have enough in the tank to make it another legitimate run?
Well, I'm the rose between two thorns.
Oh boy,
you're a real rose.
Yeah.
I think what you have to do,
Dandelion.
you have to learn. You have to lose first, and that helps you win. And I think, you look at teams like Edmonton, you look at teams like the Islanders, they lost first, then they found out what it took to win. And all I have to do is go back to the handshakes with the Chicago Blackhawks. Remember the series that Vancouver lost? They lost the series, and as I was watching the guys go down the road, look at Sedin. You lost the series. Get the smile off your face. Look at last year when they lost to Boston. Does this look like a guy who's yucking it up, having a good time? So I really believe, they've got 9 defense, they've got 2 goalies, they've got more scoring depth up front, and they've figured out losing. Now they're going to figure out winning.
I love Vancouver, but the fact is there are upsets, and I'm picking Los Angeles not only to scare them, but to upset them, and mainly because Jonathan Quick, he's just, forget about a lot of these other goalies that are being nominated for the Vezina. I think that is the guy right now, and not only the Vezina, but the Hart Trophy. He's that important to the LA Kings. And then you throw in Kopitar, that I absolutely love this guy. Craig talked about Kopitar being shut down. He's a different player than he has been in past years, where he really shoots not only to hit the net, but to put the puck through the net. He's a different player.
I think LA's battle hardened right now. Every game's been so important to them for the last month, for them just to get into the playoffs, where, Vancouver's in a division where 4 other teams in their division don't make the playoffs. They win the President's Trophy every year, but they get so many points by playing against the teams in, Calgary's not in, Edmonton's not in, Minnesota's not in, Colorado's not in, and yeah, they're #1. I don't know if they're the best team for winning the President's Trophy, so it's going to be a really good test. And someone that I absolutely love from Philadelphia, who's now in LA, is Mike Richards. And I think he's the ultimate playoff performer, and I think he brings it. I think he brings it all the time, and I don't know how. He has a little bit of what Boston had last year. How is LA, we talked about how they're going to match up, defensively, but how is the Sedins going to play against a guy like him in their face all the time?
Sounds like Jeff Carter on his wing is going to be able to go, but he's banged up, and they have Dwight King. They miss Simon Gagne. It would be nice to have him on that line.
Daniel Sedin's not back either, though.
Well,
so how is it, though, that the Kings learned how to be battle-hardened down the stretch, to squeak in, and you're telling me that the Vancouver Canucks didn't learn?
One thing about Los Angeles, one thing about them, they traveled 55,000 kilometers this year. They started overseas. They had the most ridiculous travel. Vancouver had 46,000 kilometers. So they might have been just dragging their tails a little bit from they had the by far worst schedule.
They have a great team if you look at everything. On paper, it looks great. It's just like they couldn't.
Sorry, PJ, because I butted in. We're heavy now. Playoff polls results. You can log on each day at cbcsports.ca or check out CBC News Network for our question of the day. This one was Luongo or Schneider. Who would you pick? And obviously, 2/3, the majority rules in favor of the man that Alain Vigneault has designated as the starting goaltender for Game 1 of Vancouver, Los Angeles, tomorrow night at 7:30 local, 10:30 Eastern. Our Stanley Cup countdown continues in a moment.
For many years I've been lost. Dead ends came more than enough. These
We're back in case you missed the draft lottery earlier tonight.
The number 1 overall selection in the 2012 NHL draft belongs to the Edmonton Oilers.
Wow, the Oilers, the only team to have won the draft lottery from Canada, and now they've done it twice. They beat Columbus, then Montreal, New York Islanders, and the Toronto Maple Leafs will draft in that order. Well, there's an old axiom, goaltending wins. And the other thing you look at in the Stanley Cup playoffs, when two teams give 100%, talent wins. St. Louis Blues and the San Jose Sharks. So there's an interesting one. Goaltending, is that going to be the determinant or talent?
For me, it's goaltending. This team, St. Louis, has given up 102 goals, 5-on-5. Their goaltenders' goals against off the charts. And you've got both guys, Elliott beyond belief, Halak as well, top 7 in goals against and save percentage. So for me, the Blues are a hard team to play against, no game breakers. They win round 1 and they're one and done.
And you know what? In terms of their goaltending, though, not taking away from their abilities, but they don't give up a lot of quality shots. I mean, you look at a lot of their games, especially in the third period, and they give up very few quality chances.
And St. Louis is so physical. They finish every check like Pittsburgh does in the East. And one play that kind of in a game so important for me, San Jose, they haven't been able to get over this hump for the last so many years with such a great group of players, you know, a talented group. And we always question, why can't they? This is a game that could cost them the season, and then something like this happens. Can I call it a bonehead play? I can call it a bonehead play.
Certainly can.
A player on the bench puts his stick over, and everyone knows you can't do that. It's not even a breakaway to stop the game. Everyone, I just don't know where they are mentally every year at this time. And that is a perfect example right there as to why I don't think San Jose, I love Ryan Clough, but I just don't know what he's thinking. And I don't know where they are, San Jose, mentally this time of year, year after year. So that's why I like St. Louis.
Chicago Blackhawks will take on the Phoenix Coyotes. The Coyotes, of course, with their division crown and another amazing season for Dave Tippett behind the bench. That begins on Thursday night. Hawks and the Yotes. Let's get to the predictions first from our three gentlemen and see what they think about this one.
Experts, Ron. Experts.
PJ goes with the upset.
Upset?
Well,
and they're both staring at me. I just think they have a lot more talent. I think they have a lot more talent. I think since they've brought in Johnny Oduya, I think they're better on defense now. I think they just gave the right time. There wasn't enough games to be suspended, but Duncan Keith gets a great break before a big load coming on right here. I like them. I think, you know, Sharp, Taves, Hossa, if you know, Keith, they have Seabrook. I think they have a ton of offensive talent that if they can break Phoenix's tight box, it's going to be successful.
Well, you like the names on the back of the sweaters? That's great.
Totally.
Yeah, you maybe get some autographs. I like the name on the front of the sweater, and it's the Phoenix Coyotes logo.
You like Quebec?
I do like Quebec. See you next year. But it's the name on the front, and it's Tippett, and it's Mike Smith in net. And
those names are on the back.
To me, Phoenix has 9 free agents. Okay, and I'm just going on a flyer here. But guys like Doan, Lankow, Whitney, Pyatt, half of their defense corps are free agents. They're fighting for next year in Quebec. So, that being said, I think they'll put on a pretty good 2 weeks.
When Chicago's good, they're really good. When they're bad, they're really, really, really bad. That tells me everything.
All right, let's look at one last series in this conference, and that, of course, pits the Nashville. Where am I? Detroit, Nashville, right. So we're in Nashville. Didn't recognize the rink. The Wings and the Preds gets underway at 8 o'clock Eastern. That's our first game on Hockey Night in Canada, and this will be a beauty. They split the season series in 6 games. Picks are as follows. Preds all the way, and I disagree with that one too, gents.
Well, why?
I think the Red Wings, I think Datsuk's talent, Zetterberg, they get two great lines offensively. I do think Darren Helm will hurt, but I just think, like you said about Chicago, I think they're offensively so deep, and as much as I like Kostitsins and Radulov, what they've brought, I think Detroit's going to surprise.
Detroit have won 4 cups in 14 years. They're a good team. Now, what we used to ask with Detroit was, can they win again next year after they won? What I ask now is, will they play next year? Because they're long in the tooth, 21 years in the playoffs, the same core group of guys. I think Nashville has closed the gap. And those skilled guys that you're talking about, there's the ages of this veteran group. But the best players on their team are going to have to play against Weber. They're going to have to play against Suter. And when you think about it, in Nashville, not only do they have good defensemen, but Fisher, he's healthy. Gostad, Legwand, and even Craig Smith. These are tough guys to play against in the middle to help out that defense.
Hornquist, I mean, this guy, you talk about Detroit, how they scored a lot of goals for all those years with Holmstrom and Franzen and all those guys. Like, they did it the right way, but this is a new generation of player. Holmquist, he goes right to the front of the nest. He's unbelievable. He's not afraid. He gets a lot of the goals right from the crease. He's not the prettiest player you've ever seen in your life, but as you can see, he's more than willing to pay the price.
But they do go at him. I've seen Franzen go at him. I've seen Bertuzzi's got one career goal against the Red Wings.
I would too, absolutely. You should, but he's not going to back down. He's not that sort to do that.
And another sort of thing to consider, Filppula. He always seems to play really well against that
very
team.
Good
You're going to lose, Ron. Don't.
Okay.
I think of all the teams that made transactions at the deadline, I thought that Nashville made ones that are so important for the postseason.
We didn't even talk about the goalie that happens to be the current standard that everybody looks to.
But that's right. Gill
is going to be. Special teams are so important. Hal Gill, when the Canadians made that run a few years ago, Hal Gill was so important. He's not flashing. He's kind of boxy when you watch him play, but he's just the defensive style that they have in Nashville is just perfect for a guy like Hal Gill. And killing penalties, he's going to have to. He's big. This is going to sound funny, but he has big feet and kind of awkward out there. So he's hard to play against. He's really hard to play against. And I practiced against him for 2 years. You don't know which way he's going. He's hard to read, but they just have so much depth. Gostad has another great centerman that's going to help them in the playoff run.
How about Radulov?
Yeah, he's been terrific. And he had a big goal against Detroit, and so the Kostitsins have been good against the wing. No, Wings. Chevrolet iDesk, Elliot Friedman.
Ron, 3 of you doing a great job. Glenn, sorry, not so much. Meanwhile, Western Conference injuries, 3 guys you mentioned. Jonathan Toews told the media in Chicago today he will make his decision before Game 1 if he'll play a night against Phoenix. That is Thursday. The St. Louis Blues raised some eyebrows when they called up goaltender Jake Allen on an emergency basis today. Brian Elliott has an upper body injury. They say he should be good to go Game 1, but that probably tells us who is starting. And finally, you mentioned Darren Helm, Ron. He says there's a slight possibility he plays tomorrow night, but it's more likely we will see him in Game 2 or 3.
His speed, a real factor in the games against Shea Weber and Ryan Suter. All right, a short break and back to wrap on the Hockey Night in Canada Stanley Cup Countdown. We're back on the Hockey Night in Canada Stanley Cup Countdown. Doubleheader tomorrow night from Nashville and Vancouver. Begins at 8 o'clock Eastern. Then Thursday night, Games 1 for the Sens and the Rangers and the Caps and the Bruins. Bonus coverage there from the home of the Stanley Cup champions. The hardest trophy in all of sport to win. Kelly, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I think somebody's going to put a stamp on their name and raise their level of play to where they've never been before, and I'm going to go with Lundqvist in that department.
The one thing about playoffs is, and when I was a member of the Islanders, we played a dynasty team in Pittsburgh with Mario Lemieux, loved the jersey there, and we beat them. But so don't tell anybody that they can't beat anybody in the first round or second round of playoffs. So watch for these guys to go through the wall until the will to win is taken away. And it takes a lot to take it away, and the series are going to be tight.
Brodeur, Rene, Lundqvist, Thomas, Smith, Luongo, Fleury, Anderson, Brizgallo. There's unbelievable goaltenders this year in the playoff run. So we're going to have some long nights. Scoring is going to be tough to come by, and it's anyone. The hottest goalie, the hottest team is going to be winning this thing. So that's why, but Lundqvist, I don't know, because I got Ottawa beating them.
Well, you know, getting your name on the cup, that's what you said, Glenn. The fact is, Patrice Bergeron honored his mom, too. When you look at the Bruins on the Stanley Cup, it's Patrice Bergeron, Cleary, and Mark Savard. They made sure he got his name on the Stanley Cup. And in fact, they made sure everybody in the organization won. They gave away 504 rings. If I live, or if I die, has a ring to it, doesn't it? Thanks, Cuff the Duke.
overwhelming. My faith is weary, my soul is too. Well, Lord, if you hear me, I need some truth, If I live or if I die, if I live or if I die, it's up to you, Lord. It's up to you. What do I gain and what do I